Hold on, Barbs. Hold on, Barbs. Hold on, Barbs. Hi. Okay, no sound again. You can hear me. Okay. All right. Okay, good. Now the video's out. What's happening? Can we see me? Can you see me, guys? Okay. Can you hear me now? Hopefully, Ah, there we go. All right. Sheesh. Perks of being live. This is round two. We love the challenges for sure, but this is a lot. Thank you guys for keeping up and for watching. Thank you, Jackie, for letting me know I was muted because I did not see that. Christy, oh my God, thank you. Thank you for watching. But let's see, where was I? Okay, so we talked about Daniel Radcliffe. Next, I really wanted to talk about this person, and you guys know I'm not a celebrity person. You know I'm not huge on celebrities, but this stuck out to me this past week, and who I'm talking about is Black China. I forget Black China's real name or government name, whatever you want to call. I forget her actual name, but she decided on her birthday this year that she was gonna get rebaptized and that she wanted to give her life back to God. And she has been known, if you are a conspiracy theorist or if not, to have been participating in things related to the Illuminati or with the industry, selling her soul and the things we hear of that nature. And recently, her mother came out and said that she knew that they were coming for Black China, and she was concerned and she was crying. It was a big deal on social media. It made a lot of headlines. And then Black China decided to dissolve the fillers in her face as well, and to take out her butt implants. And honestly, she looks amazing. And I think that for the reasoning alone, just to be closer to her Christianity, I mean, to closer to her God, and just that reasoning alone, I like commend Black China for standing out in the industry and removing her Baphomet tattoo that was on her waist. Thank you, Ashley, for sharing. I know, don't touch the mic. Seriously, we're good now. Don't touch it. I'm glad you guys can hear me now. But I'm glad that she went that route and she dissolved that tattoo of Baphomet, which is also a demonic symbol, on her waist, and that she's looking to get closer to Christ. And that is something that is near and dear to me. She got baptized. She got rebaptized on her birthday, and I think it's really important to make it known what you stand for. As much as people make it known what they stand for, as far as the opposite, as far or whatever beliefs that they have in the industry, they make it very known, and they even brag and boast about it. And I think a lot of times in Christianity, people feel like they have to, like it's a personal journey, which it is, but to the point where we end up not sharing our love for Christ or our love for our God or sharing our religion. And it is a personal journey. But I think that we have been given this blessings or been given this light or we've been shown, the way to God and to our God and to prayer and all through all those things like that. We've been shown that. And I think it's important for us to share that with others, not to force our views on others or anything of that nature, but to share that light and to when someone is just that person who's like, what is it about you? I can't quite put my hand on it. That to me is God, and I like to share that with everyone because that's what makes us who we are, and that's what keeps us pushing. That's what keeps us grounded, especially in my case. So you heard it here on Tea with Taylor. But moving forward. Another hot topic that stood out to me this week that was really interesting that you guys may love or hate, I'm not sure, depending on how you felt about this. But Brokeback Mountain, if you remember Brokeback Mountain, the movie, it was risque, if nothing else, for the time period that it came out. It was one of a kind, and it was one of the first times we saw a queerness on TV in that way. I think it was very bold. It was very unexpected, but expected. And it showed things in a different. It showed queerness in a different light, especially with the actors who played in it. So I think that they have their work cut out for them with this one. But Brokeback Mountain is coming to the stage. Actually, it's going to be made into a play, and it is set to be released. Actually, not just a play. It's going to be a musical. So if it wasn't gay enough before, It's even gayer now because there's music attached to it. So it's going to be a musical that's going to be released this spring. It is featuring Mike Feist or Feist. I hope I'm saying that right. The actor from West Side Story, and Lucas Hedges. Sorry. And hopefully I'm saying that name right. But I am kind of excited to see this play. I love a good musical. I'm not even gonna lie. And I feel like musicals are in the air. I feel like it's that time. It's that season for musicals. So I'm excited for it. I will be the first to go see. Unfortunately, it's going to be seen in the UK first. That's going to be in May. Sometime in May, it's going to be shown in a theater in the UK, and then eventually make its way to the US. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm hoping to see it because, again, I love a good musical. Hey, Ivan, thanks for watching. Nice to see you. Nice to see you watching. Make sure you guys are liking and sharing. Like Ashley said in the comments, I really appreciate it. It makes such a huge difference. Um, but moving forward, this one actually, I'm more than thrilled to talk about. This one actually has been in the news since last week, since 2 weeks ago, actually, and I'm really excited to talk about this because I kind of called it, and I'm happy. But also, like, it just shows the state of the world just a little bit, so not too happy. But you know who I'm talking about, Mr. Trump, former President Trump, former social media influencer Cheeto Dustin Trump, um, was arrested. And not only that, now Mr. Trump is indicted. Indicted, you said? Yes, indicted. I'm sued. I was like, yeah, drag him to jail because he deserves it for so many different reasons, that I'm not going to list them again. We talked about this last week on TV Taylor, but I'm not going to list them. But this is a first in U.S. history for any ex-president ever. So that's one thing. And he's expected to, and Trump actually said, and I quote, that he is shocked, um, that he was indicted, and he was out to dinner when he heard the news with his wife. And he was shocked, and he feels that the world is going to rage. And he said something along those lines on his social media page. I don't exactly recall what it was or remember what he said, but he of course had a rampage of something, of a bunch of things to say after he found out he was indicted. He's expected to surrender in New York City at the end of this week. So we're going to see this play out, just like January 6th. And that's the tea. That's the real tea. We're about to see this whole thing play out, and yeah, that's that. I'm gonna leave it at that for now because I could talk about it for a minute. I could, and don't don't think that I'm not gonna be keeping up with this one because this man. Again, I'm gonna leave it there. It's just a lot. But I wonder how the political parties are going to respond to this because we know for the most part how the Democratic Party is going to respond. But how's the Republican Party feeling now? Are we still backing him? Is he gaining any kind of leverage here, or like what? How are we feeling in the political parties? Because I will say it again, I feel that political parties should be done away with as a whole. But yeah, how are we feeling in these political parties? I want to see the stats about how many Republicans are still supporting Trump, because that was in a large part how he gained some traction, how he won the election during his time, because he had backing from the Republican Party, and has been said to actually have a chokehold on that party. Moving forward just a little bit because again I can talk about him all day, and it's not even a good thing. But Utah, this could be seen in two different ways, I believe. I want to see how you guys feel about this one. Utah has become the first state to ban social media for everyone under the age of 18. Just that, just plain and simple. Utah is becoming the first state to ban social media for anyone under the age of 18 without parental consent. And they're citing mental health as the reason. And I think that is, if bar none, anything that would be justified. I think it is. I think it is. I think it is important to pay attention to the young people's mental health and the role that social media plays in that. It's really important again, and I don't know if Utah's doing this for that reason or if that's just what they're citing. But they're also they're installing a curfew on social media. So anyone under the age of 18, or even I believe over the age of or under the age of 18, I'm gonna say for now because I'm not sure on that information. But there's a 10:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. curfew. So you're not, you won't be able to be on on social media from 10:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. This could go so many different ways that I'm gonna let you guys weigh in on it, because I really want to hear what you have to say. But yeah, hope and I see you guys in the comments. Hopefully, SMH, hopefully Big Brother is not doing that. Um, they get booted and muted. I cannot. I just welcome to the stage, booted and muted. No, I'm just kidding. But moving forward a little bit, I don't know how that's going to pan out. We're going to pay attention to what goes down in Utah. If there's a revolt with this whole social media ban, if not, some other cities, some other states may follow behind this ban. It may be a good thing. It could be a good thing if we are actually focusing on mental health. So that's what I'm going to leave it there. Now, this other one here, Miss Texas, y'all, Miss Texas, she's doing a lot, and in the in the midsection of the world, they seem to be doing a lot always. In the midsection of the U.S., Texas is, this federal judge just decided to strike down free access to PrEP and citing religious reasons for this one. So it would mean that you would have to pay for PrEP. And if you're on PrEP already, that would be a huge game changer. And we know in the U.S. how pricey and expensive medication can be, especially something like PrEP. So I think I'm pretty sure Texas is going in the wrong direction here. Again, another attack, I believe, on the LGBTQ community. And why all of a sudden are we feeling the need to put a price tag on this medication that has been offered freely through Obamacare? Another thing that is being attacked is Obamacare, as if it is not doing what it was intended to do. But I just think a lot of, in the political realm, a lot of people don't agree with the free healthcare or discounted healthcare or Medicare, and that's the real tea with that, and that's really what it boils down to. We really, you guys are going off in the comments. We really can't say his name anymore on social media. No, for real. Like, I'm not even gonna worry about it. I'm not even gonna say it. I'm gonna have to come up with an alias. We'll figure it out together. Because I'm not gonna say his name again. And but yeah, Texas, this federal judge ruled to strike down free access to PrEP. Make sure you guys are keeping up with that one. I'm gonna bring that back in a few weeks and see where we're at with this one. And the opposite of the last hot topic. I hope this one does not gain traction. I hope that we, see the nonsense and foolery that is banning free access to because again, it's preventing a health crisis. It's preventing HIV from being spread. And isn't that what we wanted when we decided that to go on this journey as a country, as a community, as a government? Isn't our goal to prevent these things from being spread, or to do as much as we can for people to be as healthy as possible? I mean, maybe that's just me. I don't know. But we're getting hot and talking a lot about government today. I'm not trying to get shut down. But I'm coming in hot. We're coming in hot. moving forward a little bit, this one actually scared me a little bit. It scared the crap out of me. Um, the CDC has announced and has actually been following this deadly fungus that's spreading rapidly in the U.S. Yes, yes, I said deadly fungus. Um, Again, with our health, with the U.S. healthcare system deteriorating the way it is, I'm even more scared a little bit. But woosah, take a deep breath and try not to panic. I just and I don't understand why this isn't more on the mainstream media and being talked about in the news, because it seems very dire to me. But this deadly fungus is spreading rapidly through the U.S. And mostly in healthcare facilities. It's giving The Last of Us. It's literally giving The Last of Us. Because do you remember how that started? If you haven't seen The Last of Us, spoiler alert, it is a fungus that infects the world, and it affects your nervous system and the way you think. And it's giving this, and it's been and even help me here. What are they called? The people who embalm bodies. Um, Let me know in the comments. But the people who are embalming bodies said that they have also been finding this fungus present in corpses, more so in the past 2 years. Coroners have been finding, thank you, have been finding this present in corpses for the past 2 years more and more. And there's some other incident where coroners have been finding something new in corpses as of the last 2 years. And they're not saying it directly, but they're inferring, or you know having a scientific guess, I guess, that it has something to do with the vaccines. And we saw that story with Fauci backtracking and a bunch of in the CDC backtracking of their support for the vaccine and the different effects that it may have had that we were not aware of because we all said that it was so quick. Thank you for sharing, Christy. Thank you, Morticians. Thank you. Um, yeah, so it is something that is of interest that I think we should be talking more about. This deadly fungus, they say it doesn't affect healthy people to this extreme just yet, or so that they know of. But it is more so affecting people who have a chronic illness or who are ill, which is why it's spreading in healthcare facilities where people are already ill or who have compromised immune system. Um, I, I'm a little bit frightened, and I think that we should probably be focusing more on this a little bit. Scientists and healthcare physicians, doctors, all of the above, because again, it's really giving The Last of Us. It's scary, and I want to say that it has nothing to do with the vaccines, but I don't. We just don't know. We just don't know, and that's worse, if you ask me. So I'll be keeping track of this. And apparently, some man in India also was affected by this, who was seemingly healthy. So again, this is what we know thus far, or what I know thus far. And you guys, I'll make sure to share on the Stephen Taylor Instagram and tag the article that I found this in. But if you know anything about this, feel free to share the links in the comments so everyone else can see. And anything else that you might want to share about this, because it is super important. Um, uh, Moving forward to my last hot topic. Actually, you know what? You know what? That was the last hot topic for today, y'all. So that's it for the hot topics today. I'm gonna move forward with our actual talk topic, and our chat topic, as I like to call it. And this one can be a little bit controversial, if you ask me. Speaking out in just the pure definition of the word BIPOC. And so we mentioned it earlier that today we're talking about being BIPOC in the U.S. And what BIPOC stands for is Black, Indigenous, People of Color. So that's kind of an umbrella statement that was created to incorporate, all brown or brown people, basically, Black and brown folks in the U.S. And something that I found out that was really interesting was the term BIPOC is specific and only to the U.S. So I thought that was really interesting too, because the U.S. sometimes tries to find these common grounds or these ways to brush these issues over and under a mat. But we're not going to get into that just yet. But I think it's very interesting that this term originated and is specific to the U.S. But getting into the, breaking down what BIPOC means to me and what BIPOC means, I think is really important. So I'm going to go through that with you guys just a little bit. And I'm watching, make sure to keep your comments. I just have to put the phone down a little bit because I like to talk with my hands, you know. But getting into what BIPOC means and breaking that down, I was talking, and I posted this earlier, and my good friend Ephraim Adams was saying the need to separate the term Black and Indigenous alone shows that it is something that originates in the U.S. because Black folk and Indigenous folk and Brown folk are all one and the same. Our struggles are not, however. Our struggles are similar, but our struggles are not the same. And it kind of insinuates when you use the term BIPOC. I think it's in the U.S. It kind of insinuates that all of our issues and all of our problems, and as Indigenous folks, as Native American folks, as Black folks, all of the above, and our similarities, I think it kind of coats over or puts under an umbrella all of our issues, which is not the same at all. It's similar, but not the same issue. And so that's my problem with the term BIPOC. It is something again that is shooting to kind of embrace, and what I saw online, to embrace to embrace the experience of Black and Indigenous groups and demonstrate solidarity between communities. That was the idea behind the creation of the term BIPOC. However, when you get into what Indigenous means, it also dissolves this term just a little bit. And I prefer, actually, in the business world, I think it's important to have these sort of titles. But I think maybe POC even is just a little bit better, but even a little slightly unnecessary. But person of color, I think, is a better umbrella term, if you ask me, to put brown folks than saying Black and Indigenous people of color. I think Black and Indigenous is one and the same if you in certain scenarios. For instance, Christopher Columbus coming to America. There was facts that there were people here before, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but this is why we don't celebrate Columbus Day anymore. There were people here already, and for Africa to be so close to the U.S. and for us to have islands that are so close to the U.S., how biased, or how, and in my opinion, how like vain is it to think that Black folk were not already here in the U.S. I'm pretty sure somebody found their way to the U.S. and there were some Black and brown folks that were already here. So with that being said, those Black folks are indigenous. They're indigenous to that land. And the definition of indigenous would be originating or occurring naturally in a place, or native. And when we know in our history, there's been a lot of flaws, and there's been a lot of things that's been taught that has been false or has not lined up with actual history. So we know that to begin with. But if indigenous means native, then, and we go back to the fact that there were Black and brown folk here already in the U.S., then those people are native. And that's another problem I have with the term BIPOC being created, because it doesn't acknowledge that. It doesn't acknowledge the fact that Black people been here, and we are indigenous. We are native. Like, hello, let's get it correct. If we're gonna do, and a lot of history in the U.S. is taught incorrectly, or is taught in a false world that didn't exist. And now that this is just coming to light with a lot of different things that were taught in schools, and so I think it's important that we use the term POC, and that we kind of, move away from the term BIPOC. But it accentuates the fact that we're demonstrating solidarity. Just like LGBTQ, that acronym keeps continuing to evolve and to involve others. Not that we aren't all one and the same under the queer umbrella, but we're showing and demonstrating in a way that we are, demonstrating solidarity. So I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit here, just because I can. But again, it's a term that I have a little bit of a problem with, but it is a term that was created with that in mind, to create that solidarity, to show that we are demonstrating solidarity as a government, as a country, as a community. Now, another problem that I have with this is that I think it doesn't correctly or adequately, you know, relay the message about systematic racial injustices. And that's a whole nother episode. But I don't think that the term BIPOC actually draws attention to, the systematic racial injustices that we have individually suffered, as an indigenous person, as a black person, or as both, as a Hispanic person, as a Native American, as a Middle Eastern, as an Indian. We believe, and excuse me if any of my terminologies are wrong, but we have to look at the individuals as well. And I don't know that this term BIPOC draws attention to the different racial injustices that we all face being brown folk. Again, why I am more of a person to back the term POC, because it is persons of color, period. And then when you go into it deeper, you can break that down into the different groups of colors and the different groups of nationalities and origins and cultures and things that play a role in what makes those people who they are. So that's another thing that I think should be, I hope that this term is not seeking or contributing to erasing, the idea that systematic racial injustices are still happening in abundance, especially in the artist communities, especially with creatives. And that's something, and again, a whole nother episode that we can get into, but creatives tend to suffer a lot more, by the hands of these things. Thank you, Ashley. Ashley said great words, Taylor. Okay, thank you. But I think, in my opinion, creatives tend to suffer, from these terminologies and these things that are created that kind of seemingly, on one hand, erase the challenges and struggles of the individual. And I want to hear you guys. I want to hear from you guys on on how you feel about that. Ivan says, "Do you agree with the evolvement of the added letters to LGBTQ? I mean, to LGBT, or do you feel it falls under the same umbrella like BIPOC or POC?" You know what, Ivan? Again, I'm going to play devil's advocate with that one. I feel that it's important to have these identifying factors, and I think it's really it is one method of demonstrating, togetherness and demonstrating solidarity, with this terminology and how LGBT has, evolved into LGBTQIA and so forth. But I don't know that, again, it's not fully representing the struggles of all the queer communities, and it kind of is breaking it down to a point where now it's separated. It's a certain extent. There's a thin line between bringing us all together and separating us within our own community, because we are all queer. So I agree with it to an extent, but I don't know that we have the need to keep extending this just to demonstrate solidarity. We all show solidarity under the umbrella of queer, and that's where I think we should all live. But again, it's hoping that it is not erasing any kind of history or any kind of struggles that each individual has faced. So that's where I'm going to leave that. But thank you for that question, Ivan. I appreciate that. No, because and I do stand by the term POC again. And for POC, I think it's important to use in the workplace. I think it differentiates, a lot of people in the workplace, because they're for so long with applications for jobs, or with building careers or things along that lines, paperwork has either been black, white, Hispanic, or other. And that there's a lot more than that, and that the other seems slightly dismissive in certain scenarios, if you ask me. So I think that POC kind of, especially for what's the word I'm looking for if we're looking to be courteous or to be acknowledging all the different people, I think in the workplace it's important to say POC until you know otherwise, until you're taught otherwise, until that person learns you otherwise. So I think POC is a good term business wise. So I'll say that. I'll throw that out there. It's not all bad, and it is showing that we are moving forward. Again, it's a symbol of solidarity, but it really does need it doesn't need the extra. I think we have joined together under the queer umbrella, and I think with POC in the workplace, we've joined together under just being persons of colors already. Because and that's another issue within the workforce of not having enough POCs. But that again, that could be a whole other episode. So moving forward just a little bit, being BIPOC also shapes and highlights your experience with whiteness. And yeah, yeah, I said it. It really does shape your experiences and highlight whiteness within the community and within the U.S. because it's something that is all too often ignored and all too often not looked at as a factor in a lot of the things that we go through as persons of color. But it is, and unfortunately, in the U.S. even more so because it's it's more so a secret now. It's not out in the open like it used to be. People are discreet with their racism, or people are discreet with the way that they present their whiteness and their white privilege. Oh, excuse me. So, as a person of color in the workforce, especially, you have to learn to kind of recognize when that is being presented to you. Because these are the highlights of our life. These are the things that we take away from the creation that we are. And I think that our experiences make us who we are, as as some of us may believe. And our experience with, for me, especially my first experience with whiteness and white privilege in the US, I will never forget because I tend to forget sometimes. And a lot of us tend to forget that it is so prevalent. And I think in this moment, for me, I was 16 years old and realizing, wow, people are still very, very racist or very, very much in a power struggle when it comes to race or when it comes to persons of color, especially in the workforce and in the US. And it's just a little bit more prevalent, I think, in the US. So for me, it's something that has really shaped my opinion of whiteness in the US. And globally, actually, because we see a lot of demonstrating factors with, third world countries or other places that may not be as well off as the US. We see how white folk or non POCs respond to those, and we see the difference in AIDS and the difference in, how they're presented even on the public eye. And that's a big one for me, especially being someone who curates his image to the public. Just having this conversation earlier about artists and how people, tend to take a lot of effort to curate their appearance and to curate what they present to the world, especially on social media. And so it's a really big one for me when someone is not respecting that, or when someone has a problem with you just being who you are. You're just your blackness. And because we have been presented with whiteness in the US in such a direct and abrupt way, I think it's really vain again to not recognize how whiteness affects the POC experience globally. Your relationship with white supremacy, even because we know in our past that white supremacy was a thing, and we know that it has affected our ancestors and it has affected our history. So again, for you to be so, vain or ignorant to not know how whiteness affects being a POC is a privilege. And again, that is white privilege that has shaped our relationships as POCs. And so we have to acknowledge that. And don't get me wrong, I love my allies and I love that there are certain, persons who are white who have taken the time to educate themselves. One, because it is not our responsibility to educate you, but who have taken the time and energy to educate themselves on, culture and POCs in general. So, kudos to those allies. But it is, again, still a huge thing that we need to talk about in the U.S. that has been so prevalent, um, even with again in the workforce with wage gap between women, between POCs and the others. Because technically, as funny as it sounds, minorities are not minorities anymore. The white folks are actually the minorities in the U.S. And so the sooner that they realize that, maybe the sooner they will be likely to jump on the ally ship. Um, that's the only way we're gonna really we're really gonna like get them to be on board with the changes that are happening, because it's gonna happen. It's happening. The world is changing. Everything around us is changing, and it's, you either get on board or get lost. That's where it's gonna be at this point. Because again, minorities are not minorities anymore. Um, and it's just that simple. I'm gonna leave it right there before I get into a little bit even more. But things are changing. And again, exploring the term BIPOC, just to bring it back to that, I think it's one of those terms that we kind of can do without. And I'm gonna stand firm on that one. I think POC gets the point across. And in my experience, my personal experience with being a POC in the U.S., honestly, I don't know if we need another title, another, something to box us into the status quo. So I think exploring the BIPOC being a BIPOC or as a title alone, I think it's slightly not needed. But the experience of being a person of color in the U.S. should be explored, and I think telling our stories is a big part of that, especially as artists, entertainers, performers, etc. Anything in the creative field, I really think it's important for us to share our stories, so that as a whole we come together and we don't allow these things to continue happening, because it's really important. It is, and a lot of times I think it's overlooked, or we're overlooked as individuals, but as a whole, we can't be. So that's the trick. That's the trick. As a whole, we could not be overlooked. And I appreciate you all for joining in on this conversation. I really do. But that's really where I want to leave it. Um, yeah, I think I want to leave it there. I think, and I'm looking forward to hearing a lot of other experiences from you all, and from other POCs on your journey in life, especially in the U.S. It has its own set of challenges, and I'd be ignorant to say otherwise. Um, yeah, yeah, I'm gonna leave it there because I could go a lot deeper and talk about it a lot more. But I really want to hear from you all. So I will be making sure to watch after the stream to catch your comments to see, how much you want to share. Thank you for sharing the links, Ashley. I see that. Great stream. Thank you, Ashley. Ivan, for watching. I appreciate you guys. And I'm open to hearing questions or even debates, because I was waiting for my good friend Ephraim to join in to the conversation because he had a lot to say in the comments. I feel like Nikki calling Miley out. This is about to go in all the comments to say. No, but honestly, I really am open to hearing what you all have to say about being a person of color in the U.S. and how that has affected your journey, and anything that you are doing where you feel that that has come into play, because it does come into play a lot more than we tend to give light to, or that we tend to acknowledge. So that is my charge to you all, that we are acknowledging those things, that we are together one voice when it comes to being POCs in the US, and when it comes to standing out and speaking out on being a POC and not being seen and not being heard in the US, because it's a narrative that has grown tired, and we can no longer allow it to happen. For me personally, it is coming into my own and learning about, again, educating myself on my culture and knowing who I am as a POC and where I am in this world. I think is really super important for us all to know. So again, I charge you all to learn yourself and to learn being a POC and where you are in this community and in this world. And then we can all stand together in one voice and make these changes that we are looking forward to happen. Thank you all again for watching. I'm gonna give you back your Friday nights. Cheers to you all and to all the POCs in this community and globally, worldwide. I'm gonna say it as I always do. Make sure you are being good to yourselves. Um, Looking inward before outward for all life's problems and all life's solutions. I love you all. Thank you for keeping up. Make sure you keep up with the Tea with Taylor Instagram for the hot topics after the show and throughout the weekend. Thank you so much. Have a good night, y'all.